of the questions that came through have to do with how do you define the research populations. And this is a little more of a sophisticated question, so don't worry so much if you don't understand this. I'm going to be posting some cheat sheets and help systems later on this month. But how do you identify them as a pay-per-click search marketer? Where do you find them? How do you study them so that you can start to evolve your systems to address them? And I'll give you a very short answer. I'll give you a short technique for doing it, and I'll give you a basic principle. The concern from a number of people was, well, if you were only addressing the hyper-responsive customer in your sampling, aren't you going to skew the results and not really get the sampling from everyone else? And you know, what if it turns out that that hyper-responsive customer is so difficult to reach that even though they're more valuable, the affordability of reaching them just doesn't work? And so let me say that in every research, every bit of research advice I will give, I will always tell you that you want to sample from the population that you can reasonably reach in your marketing. So in pay-per-click, that's pretty simple. If you've got an established pay-per-click system with a number of different ad groups, those are the groups that you're going to be surveying. Now, within those groups are going to be some less responsive consumers and some hyper-responsive consumers. And you will find, via one method, for example, is to include an open-ended question on your opt-in form. What's your most important question about blank, whatever your keyword was? And that's a very simple way of going about it. And one of the indications of hyper-responsivity is how detailed and passionate and essentially how long of a response people give to that open-ended question. And this is a very simplistic way of looking at it, but you could take all the answers to that opt-in form and you could put aside everyone who gives you more than 100 characters. And you'll notice that if you just read those qualitatively, those people are more engaged, they're giving you more objections and concerns, they're more likely to be hyper-responsive. I recommend a whole set of criteria for defining that, but that's a very simple way of thinking about it. And then once you've got that very objective metric, now you can do three things with it. You can look at the specific concerns of people that leave more than 100 characters, and you can take that language and try to improve your AdWords ads and your opt-in forms, and just try to increase your pull for those kind of people, orient your systems to those kind of people. You usually find an increase in your opt-in and a decrease in your conversion rate when you do that. But you can also look at the percentage of responses that come in over 100 characters long, and you can look at how that varies keyword group to keyword group to keyword group. And when that will start to tell you, as you map the vocabulary of your market, it will start to tell you where in that geography of vocabulary are the more hyper-responsive terms. And as you look at the volume and percent of hyper-responsive response, you can figure out which keyword groups to focus on to reach those hyper-responsive people. So research sampling, short answer is you always go after the same population that you're going to be marketing to. And the longer answer is that you look specifically at the percent of hyper-responsive people within that population, and you figure out how you can reach more of them by changing your ads, your sales pages, your follow-up autoresponders, your everything about how you relate to them, and you zero in on them like that. And then you compare group to group to group. The last set of questions had to do with whether it was really possible to capitalize on hyper-responsive customers if you don't have a back end yet. And I will say that it is definitely important to have a back end. You don't have to develop it yourself. If you are the person in the market that has this hyper-responsive information, if you know more than your competitors about what the hyper-responsive people want in your market, and if you are arranging your front-end systems to make sure you have a higher proportion of hyper-responsive people in your lists than other people in your market, well, then you can go and look for the higher-end back-end services and products that are already developed, and you can just do the marketing for them. So that's one where you can leverage this information if you haven't developed a back-end system. in some ways you're in better shape if you don't have a back-end system, because you can now, especially after working with your competitors and JV partners and other existing products in the market, well, you're going to know what's really selling best, and you're going to know the language that sells it. Now you're in a much better position to develop the back-end products for hyper-responsive yourselves. And I can tell you from experience that I've gone out and developed back-end products without doing this kind of research, and it's very frustrating to know that I missed core elements of what the hyper-responsives want, and I have to kind of scrap the back-end product and redo it. So if you do have existing back-end products, it's worthwhile considering doing that once you really understand what these people want. And prove it first by doing some JV offers with existing products and services, so you don't go through the product development expense and effort without knowing that it's going to work, because you can develop the sales systems first. So that's really what I had to say in response to the questions today. I definitely want your comments. There's a comment box below. Please leave me your comments and questions and concerns. I'm writing a book on all this, so it's particularly interesting to me what people have to say, and he'll be publishing that very shortly. So talk to me. Dr. Glenn Livingston from PayperClickSearchMarketing.com. Thank you.